What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Chuds BBQ. My name is Bradley Robinson, and today I'm going to show you how I made these beautiful, delicious, smoky, barky, glazy, herby, amazing brined holiday ribs. Coming up. These are some ribs. Pat them dry. And what I got here is some pretty classic standard baby back ribs. These ones are looking particularly meaty, which I'm excited about, but nothing too fancy. Just picked these up at the local grocery store, and this one has the membrane removed already, and this one doesn't, and I'm fine with it. I would have left it on either way. But as far as trimming these up go, if there's something weird hanging off, like this little flap that's always there seemingly, go ahead and nip that off. If there's any super tiny bones you want to get rid of, you know, just kind of squaring it up to make it a little more presentable, but really not much to do here. Flip these over. Again, these are looking pretty good, pretty clean, so I'm gonna leave them just like this. Worry about that burning up on me, but I guess we'll find out, folks. So at this point, we're just gonna set these aside and we're gonna bust out a brine real quick. And brining ribs is something I've been playing around with a lot lately. It's definitely not a necessary thing. You know, if I was just trying to do a quick weekend cook, or if I owned a restaurant or something, I would definitely not brine my ribs. But it does work particularly well with baby back ribs because it's essentially just loin meat on a bone, and loin meat can get pretty dry and doesn't have all that much flavor. And when planning this video, I really wanted to take a really cheap cut like baby back ribs and prepare it in a way that has all the flavors of the holiday and essentially creating a Christmas dinner on a budget. And I think a brine is a great way to do that. So we're gonna bust out a really simple brine with some salt and sugar and all the classic flavors of this time of year. Starting, we're going into this pot with some brown sugar. Great way to get rid of some crusty brown sugar, as well as some kosher salt and some water. And let that start coming up to a simmer. And on its way up, we can start going in with everything else, including the juice and zest of some orange, followed by some crushed garlic, some sage, some thyme, and some rosemary, a couple of bay leaves, a few cinnamon sticks, a few cloves, some allspice berries, black peppercorns, and to finish it off, we'll go in with some freshly grated nutmeg. This is smelling so Christmassy already. I'm gonna bring this up to a boil, make sure all these flavors are extracted and all that sugar and salt are dissolved, and then into my intended brining vessel. Beautiful. And to cool this off and add the rest of our water, I'm going in with some ice water. And what I did is when the ribs were still in the package, I put them in here and filled it up with water, so I had a good idea of how much water I needed to brine these two ribs in this particular vessel. Then I got the weight of that water and based all my salt and sugar calculations around that. And now we're just gonna let this cool down for a minute. And then in we go with our ribs. I'm going bone side down, that way the brine can get underneath because those bones are arched. And it looks like we have the perfect amount of brine. Nice. Gonna pop a lid on this and stick it in the fridge overnight, probably 24 hours. One overnight brine later, you can see that these ribs have changed color a little bit. They're feeling a little heavier, definitely looking and smelling nicely brined. Definitely got some more weight to them, which is a good thing. That means we got a lot of flavor in there. But now we're gonna add a bit of a rub to finish these off before we go ahead and throw them on the pit, which for me today is gonna be some good old fashioned Chuds BBQ sweet rub, sweet cheeks that is. I like this rub, not too salty, so I'm not too worried about the salt content from the brine. It's got some nice savory flavors and of course some nice maple sweetness to it, which I think will pair very well with all the flavors in that brine. Oh, it smells so good. It smells like waffles. Beautiful. Nice even coating. And because there's not all that much pepper in that rub, I'm gonna go ahead with some 16 mesh as well. Beautiful. Flip them over. Ignore the guy mowing his lawn right there. And we'll do the top sides as well. Oop, that's a lot. Do the top sides as well. And don't forget the sides, folks. Rookie move. Little extra pepper as well. And that is looking pretty much perfect to me. So let's go ahead and throw these on the pit. And on the pit we go. Got a classic post oak fire rocking today. Cooking probably right around 275 for most of this cook. Really not too worried about it. Baby backs, they're good low and slow. They're good hot and fast. I'm gonna rock it somewhere in the middle. And it shouldn't take too long. I'm gonna say probably about 4 or 5 hours, but I will keep you posted. That brine might make these take a little bit longer, but we'll check back in on these when they're looking nice and smoky. While those ribs cook, let's get our glaze ready. Starting with a shot of some bourbon. Followed by a cup of some apple cider, as well as a cup of some apple cider vinegar. Also gonna go in with a nice healthy shot of some maple syrup, add a little more sweetness. And to drive home the flavors from the brine, we got some rosemary, thyme, and sage. Now I'm gonna simmer this for a while, let it reduce down a bit. And after reducing down for about 10 minutes or so, it's thickened up a little bit. And I pulled all those herbs out after they cooked down. I didn't want them burning on the bottom, but I think it's time to check in on those ribs. We're about 3 hours into this cook. They're reading about 160 internal, so I'm gonna start glazing these up. Loving the color on them. Bark is set, so we don't need to worry about washing any of that rub off or anything like that. Because this glaze is a little on the looser side, I'm gonna start now, and by the time these come up to temp, it should be tacked up nice. Get a couple layers on there, because we all know it's all about building those layers of flavor. This glaze is very appley, and I think it's gonna pair lovely with these porky ribs. So for the next hour or so, I'm gonna just come out here periodically and just brush some glaze on these guys, get them nice and sticky, add a nice layer of sweetness, and continue the smoke. We're about 6 hours into this cook, and these ribs are finally probing nice and tender and coming off the pit and are very hot. And I wanted to do a no wrap on these ribs, which is something I've been debating about all day long, and that's because it's a really sticky glaze. Once this cooled down, you can really see how thick and sticky it got, and it's also very sugary, and that is something that can be kind of difficult when you wrap it up, because it will stick to the foil, kind of mess up your presentation, but it also runs the risk of your ribs becoming extra dark, so that's why I was kind of going back and forth all day. But I decided to go with the no wrap just to see how these come out. I figured with the brine, they've got a lot of moisture in there anyway, and wrapping them might have that extra moisture come out and kind of steam the thing. So anyway, long story short, these are coming off. Whew, that's hot. And as you can see, they did in fact get nice and dark, but we've got a really nice candy coating on the outside. They're looking nice and tender, nice and smoky, probing right around 200 degrees and smelling so good. I'm getting a lot of apple. That herb is coming through. The candy coating on the outside is exceptional. I bet it'll harden up if I let these cool down all the way. But I need to let these cool down at least a little bit before I go ahead and slice on in. So I'll see you in like, I don't know, 20 minutes. And now it's time for my least favorite thing in the world, trying to cut baby back ribs. You know, those bones go all over the place, so if I fail right now, at least I warned you about it. We'll start with this guy. Oh, loving the glaze on that. Feeling it nice and tender. Just gonna go for it. Ooh, so far so good. Yeah, and hit a bone. They just curve. Oh, yeah, you see, they curve this way and this way. It's very awkward. Oh, that's a little easier. Okay, but now I'm ruining the bark with the sticky. It's all good. God, what a weird cut to make. But all in all, that's looking pretty good. That kind of looks like brisket in a weird way. Smoke ring, feeling nice and tender. Beautiful glaze on there. Love it. All right, let's keep going. Oh, now that was a nice cut. Beautiful looking rib right there. Boop. Good looking ribs. Honestly, the dark bark may turn some... Ooh, what's this? Nope. It's candy. Sorry, getting ahead of myself. The dark bark is often frowned upon because it just looks burned, and I get that, but it reminds me of the early days of when I started cooking barbecue. Me and my roommates used to call them baby barks, where we would try and get them as dark and smoky with that sugary Memphis style rub or a glaze like this, really trying to get that dark color, and they just taste so good. But from an appearance standpoint, not the best. I'm gonna cut this rack in half. That might be the way to do it. Just go right for the meaty boys in the middle. Yes, please. All right, I'm ready. Once you look at them, folks, that nice, deep, dark glaze, a lot of smoke flavor on there, juicy, brined, tender meat. Ooh, I want to see how they taste. Ooh. Ho, 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 ho. Oh, yeah. That's a solid baby back rib right there. Oh, yeah. That texture is just perfect. It's just so juicy. All the way through, seasoned throughout. Definitely getting some nice herb notes on there, but nothing overpowering. Probably wouldn't notice it if I didn't point it out, but really adds that nice kind of Christmassy note. That cinnamon and clove from the brine are like a 0.1 on the flavor scale. Again, I don't think you'd notice it, but if you ate these at the holidays, you definitely feel all warm and fuzzy inside. Now, this is a rib that Santa would want. Wow, clean off the bone, but nothing's falling off, you know what I mean? Perfect cook on that. The glaze is spectacular. I thought it was gonna be way too intense, because when I tasted it, it was very appley and very sweet, but it definitely mellowed out during the cook. And it's just a really well-balanced rib, you know? Tender, succulent, juicy meat, pulls off the bone, nice and clean. Really nothing to complain about. I really think brining baby backs might be the way to go, if you have the time. Sticky, candy-like glaze, just like a classic rib, but it's got so much flavor to it, and every inch of meat on this thing is fully seasoned because it was brined, so it's not just a layer of seasoning on top. That's a good rib. Now, the original goal of this was to try and create something that you could serve on a holiday table. And if you handed me that at a holiday meal, I would be pretty pumped about it. I tell you what. That is so, so good. One thing I keep forgetting is that when you brine stuff and it's fully logged with water, it takes a lot longer to cook. You know, these took probably 6 or 7 hours to get up to 200 degrees, which is understandable if you think about the science of it, but something I never plan ahead for. You know, I really thought this was gonna be a really quick cook. But at the end of the day, results are there. These are super tasty and pretty easy to do. Just takes a lot of time and a lot of materials. Which begs the question, are these ribs worth making? And you know, if you're really on a budget and you want to make something special with a really cheap cut, I think this is definitely worth doing. I think the brine really helps the texture of the pork loin meat, adding a lot more juiciness, tenderness, and overall flavor. God, they smell so good. But at the same time, not the most practical thing, because you got to brine them overnight. That's a big jug to keep in your fridge. And you could probably get something very similar to this with just a dry rub or maybe a dry brine or something like that. But either way, I'd say give it a shot because you can put anything you want in that brine. And I'm very happy with how these came out. But before I dive into the rest of these, I think it's time for the official taste test. Pork rib off the bone. All right, y'all, that is it. That is how to make some absolutely fantastic herb brined holiday flavored baby back ribs. I highly recommend giving this one a try. You know, as much as I love throwing wacky things on the old smoker behind me here, I also love just taking the classic cuts that we all know and love, trying a few different techniques and new flavor profiles, and making something that's worthy of the holiday table. But all that being said, if you enjoyed this video, let me know by hitting that subscribe button. Let YouTube know by dropping a like on this video. If you give this recipe a try for yourself, be sure to tag me on Instagram at Chuds BBQ. I'd love to see what y'all are cooking. Big shout out to all the Patreon members. Thank you for supporting Team Chud and allowing me to keep making all these videos. And until the next time I see you, please go cook something outside. Peace!